Ka tia kei te whānau, tēnā tauti mai rā ki tō tātou pakihere roki on Kaupapa podcast today. He ahua rereke i te mea kua tau mai tētahi tūwā tangata. No te tai rāwhiti, engari he ononga nōna ki konei ki roto o Ngāti tū whare toa. And with that mataora, I think he is one of the most handsome fellas in, o Te Pāti Māori. Yeah. Nau mai haere mai.
Kia ora, kia ora. I'm the only fella in Pāti Māori at the moment. We've got to get another fella in there.
Sika.
But anyway.
Thanks for pointing that one out.
Tēnā koe.
Whakamara mātu.
Tēnā koe for that introduction.
Ai, blushing, eh?
Kia koe. Oh. Kia ora tātou tū whare toa. Ko Rawiri Waititi tōku ingoa. Tuatahi e mokopuna tēnei. No ngā hapū kārangaranga maha o te rohe o te Waiariki me pera pēta ku kōrero. Engari tipu au ki te take o te hirau. Te wahiu mai ngā tātou waka. Te
So
arawa.
your boss calling you your wife?
Quite possibly. Yes.
It is.
But we'll just put her on silent for a little while. Don't tell me
Kia
that.
ora, I love that. This is what it's all about.
And yeah, he pai te hara mai ki konei ki tū whare toa. Me te nui o ngā here ki tēnei kāinga o tāua. Me te mea hoki i pōhiritia ko te kāhui maunga. Te kui e tū mai nei. Ia mātou i tēnei ata. E maua nei te pōtai hina. E tauria nei te huka. Me te atau. Ara te moana e takoto mai rā. E pohiri nei a mātou i tēnei rā. Me te atau o tēnei, te takotoranga o ngā tūtohu whenua o tēnei kāinga. Nō reira tū whare toa. Tēnā tātou. Maranga mai.
Maranga mai ka tika. Ana, nō ka hara mai ki tēnei whare o tātou whakaaro ake he wā pai tēnei ki te ata kōrero i ngā whakapapa, ngā here-herenga ki wainga nui a tātou me te mōhio he nui ngā tai rāwhiti, te whānau apanui kua moe i a mātou i tēnei kāwai i enei whakapapa o Ngāti tū whare toa. Kōrero mai moe rā hononga.
Well, he maha. Tuatahi, ka tiki aki a tū whare toa me hene motu. Ara, timata mai rera. Ko whakaritea mai te tauira i te tipuna nui, i ngā tipuna nui a tū whare toa me hene motu. Anei ko tai mai. Tai ake rā i roto i ngā taumaha, eta. Ko taku kōkā tērā, te tuakana o taku pāpa, ara ka moia ki tētahi māriu ki konei, no rungo o te pā waihi, ki tāpeka, ko Joe Māriu tērā, ara, he mea kata no mātou, no te mea, tō mātou kuia koki, atareta, ka moi Marama Wall, ara, ka heipu mai ko ngā wōro o Waitaha nui, I kata mātou ki ngā hono pēra ka moia te moki ki te traute ka ki ana he trauki. No rere, he nui ngā trauki e ao mio haere i ngā wai Māori o tēnei kāinga. No rere, ana hoki, me wenei rangi tonu. Vai maria mātou i a tūwhare toa. Te taumata apunui kapahaka, te whānau apunui kapahaka. Ka roa nei tō koutou tangata hikei. Hei tūtei, no te mea anō rā, te tāroa te kaitao te tangata.
Hei ke mono mai koe karanga mātou kia hei hoki mai ki te wākainga, hoki mai.
Me
Rāua ko manawa.
Rawa tahi ko manawa. Ai, nō reira wai maria mātou. Hei nui ngā toro ki roto i a koutou. Me te atahua. Nō reira, koina hoki te pai o te whakapapa. He toro ki tēnā hapū, ki tēnā whānau, ki tēnā whānau.
He atahua tēnei mea te whakapapa hei tū hono i a tātou. Ka mutu roto i tēnei horopaki o te ao tōranga pū me manaki ka tika i ngā mea whakapapa i te mea e mohio pai ana tāua tēnei hanga. This is not of our making there. This is something that's been brought on to us. So we always go back to our whakapapa to remind us of those connections. Before we move into this realm of what politics entails. First of all, I think we're going to start off with the pātai around Te Waiariki. From your perspective, we are part of Te Waiariki. What are the needs for Te Waiariki? What do you see out there? What do our people need?
I think there are a whole lot of complex issues facing the Waiariki at this particular time, and the Waiariki being the most diverse, I would say, of many of the electorates. It's not many electorates that have the lakes, the mountains, the fresh water, the ocean. We're lucky enough to be able to bring all of those things together, and I think the protection of those resources is fundamental for the Waiariki, and so I think taiao issues is huge for the Waiariki at this particular time as this government starts to look at extracting more, and how do we as kaitiaki continue to look after many of the resources here, whether it be geothermal, whether it be fresh water, whether it be even our whenua. And so I think that's one issue that we need to continue to keep our eye over. I think our ability to be able to continue to work in spaces like councils, because many of the consenting within councils and the changes to the RMA means that those relationships and the accountability back to Tiwi Māori and hapū in regards to whenua and the resources that they want to exploit, I think is another big thing for us. I think housing is also another issue.
Around the RMA, Turangi Tuku in particular, in this particular rohe has mana whakahono to our kaunihera, and we know that the relationship goes beyond the paperwork that's there. And te toro mai oponeke ki te haukoti, ki te whakararu i tērā kaupapa has been quite challenging. How would Te Pāti Māori approach that within your policies, ngā kaupapa here o Te Pāti Māori?
Well, Te Pāti Māori is clear, and I think we may be the only ones with a mana mutahake policy. Excuse me. And I think that particular policy is about giving the power back to where mana sits, which is within our hapū, to be able to look over those particular spaces. Te mana whakahono was one space that our people had an opportunity to sit around the council. When you've got treaty obligations through settlement process, what does post-settlement process look like? What it doesn't look like is actually removing those voices from the table, because wouldn't you rather be sitting opposite those who have the mana over their lakes and over their lake beds and over their maunga and over their national parks and things like that, sitting at the table having those discussions and ensuring that we're looking after all of those things on behalf of the people who live in those particular areas? Or would you rather be sitting in front of a judge in a courtroom because we've had to litigate? And we'll see a lot of litigation through many of the changes that this government has done in terms of the continued breaches of the tiriti o Waitangi. And so Te Pāti Māori is clear, and our mana motuhake policy is that tribunal, the Waitangi Tribunal recommendations are upheld and koko whakamana tērā, and ensuring that iwi and hapū have their voices across all governance tables, whether it be local, whether it be central government. Those are essential to us. The difference with us and other parties is we're born to a pepeha. The only thing that makes us all the same here in Aotearoa is a birth certificate. That's the only thing. Other than that, what makes us different is we're born to a pepeha. So when we look at the environmental issues in front of us, ki te kia koe ko tongariro te maunga ko taupo te moana, heka, kei rere te whakapapa, kei rere ke te kaitiakitanga, kei rere ke te apopotanga o i rātu āhuatanga. There's no doubt about that, that Te Pāti Māori is the only one that has that its representation or whakapapa to a pepeha.
Ke kōrero tia e tāua te pepeha, ai kōrero hoki koe mō te tai au. Ana, roto i o tāua kōrero, mārama pai ana. Tātou ka mutu tēnei rohe ko tētehi o ngā ohaki nui o te ariki a tātumu te heu ke hoki mai ngā pai maunga ki te manaakitanga o te iwi. And with our pepeha in mind, and the tai au, specifically some of those challenges in the environmental area, what are key things that Te Pāti Māori has to move us through this specific time around some of the tai au challenges and finding that balance?
I feel very fortunate to have had those conversations with Te Ariki Nui, Tā Te Mutuhehu, around the National Park. And actually, the gift to the nation was a generous gift by Tū Wharetoa and Te Whare and on the premise that it would be looked after for all to enjoy. Unfortunately, they're not looking after it as we and as the Whareariki and Tū Wharetoa have seen, they're not looking after it to the best of their ability, and that's the difference, is that they don't have whakapapa to the national park. They don't have whakapapa to Tongariro, and they don't have a vested interest in terms of the blood ties, the history, but also the whakapapa to those things. So I totally supported them. If you're not going to look after it, whakahokia mai. If you don't look after that taonga, and we've always been taught, when you borrow something, when you finish with it, give it back. And so I totally support that. And if that is a continued space that the current ariki, Te Rangi Mahiu, wishes to pursue, My job is to support.
What does that support look like?
It means that whatever legislative changes that need to be made, that is my job in that particular space, in the kāwanatanga space. I'm clear. A rangatiratanga space, that's the mana space. There's a spaces in my role here that I don't enter. My thing is to listen to rangatiratanga and exactly what they want. In the kāwanatanga space, my job is to undo some of the harmful pieces of legislation that blocks the ability for our people to be able to do the things they need to do to ensure that they can enact Article 2 of the Tiriti o Waitangi, which was to have full and exclusive rights to our whenua, to our kāinga, to our taonga.
Kia ora. Ana, kia tahuri te aroaro mai i a tongariro maunga kia taupo moana. Ana, mōhio pai ana tātou, the bed of Taupo Moana does sit with the Tūwharetoa Māori Trust Board with this iwi, which you talked about earlier, and again another challenge around the environment. You've talked about the motuhake, mana motuhake policy that Te Pāti Māori has. How can Te Pāti Māori support things like the dump on Tauhara Maunga, underneath Tauhara Maunga, the amalgamation of different councils, and of course ngā wero o roto, i te mea he nui ngā hononga ki te kaunihera o konei e pāna ki te wai me te mahitahi, he mea nui rawa te tēnā. Still work in progress, but it is happening, and some of these things have been fought for years. So what can Te Pāti Māori do to support in these spaces within policy and advocating?
Well, you know, like the National Park in Tongariro, Maunga, I also had discussions with Tātemu about Te Mana o Te Wai. And so both he and Tūheitia, King Tūheitia, were leading in that particular space in regards to Te Mana o Te Wai. And you know, like I said, you don't want after treaty settlements where the lake bed belongs to the iwi, and then you push that voice off the table. Absolutely makes no sense to me. And then you got Tauhara Maunga e Tūmaira and the dump. And I know, I thought about this because we had prakati here, Te Taumatapani, we were having prakati here in Taupo because all of our roads were closed, so we had a bit of haroa for our whānau travelling. So just want to be to Tūwharetoa.
Mihi mai.
And for opening the doors to our kapa here. But you know, when we were finished our kapa clean up, do the rubbish, and we were driving over to the dump. And seeing the maunga stand there, so I know firsthand because he's rongo. And so my thing is, I think the best thing we can do is listen to what our iwi and our hapū are saying in those particular spaces, and then put the plan together about how we rectify that. Some of it will be in terms of legislative, and the other would be regulative. So the regulations are actually controlled by council. And I'm glad you fellas go, my niece on there, wahine tapu merch. Shout out to you, my niece. I don't know which side it is, whether it's the war side or the Waititi side, but edua. And to note that, you know, the Māori wards was an important space for our people to find voice, but it also had an important space for Tauhara to find its voice, for the Moana to find its voice, and for Tongariro to find its voice. And when you push those voices away from the table. So my thing is, I'm interested and keen to be talking with those particular hapū and those who are leading in those particular projects about what we need to do to rectify that, and then look at what kind of policies and legislative changes I need to make in my space as a mahi space, because that's the mana space, as a mahi space, to ensure we can follow through on that. And that is how Te Pāti Māori works. It's not about what we want, it's about enacting what our people want. And we're just the ringaringas and the waiwais in the kāwanatanga space, consented to by our tipuna i haina tia te tiriti o Waitangi.
Kia ora. Ko te tehi o ngā tino wero I tēnei wā, ko te whakakotahi o ngā kaunihira. You talked about the RMA a little bit earlier on. I want to dive into it a little bit more, specifically te mea koe nei te tehi o ngā aronga o tēnei kaunihira, kia kaua e tūhono ki te tehi atu I te mea he nui ngā taumaha o tērā kaunihira, ka whakapōraru I tēnei rohe. What is your whakaaro around this particular area?
Yeah, I think Waiariki, like if you look at Waiariki as a whole, is one of the richest in regards to its resourcing. Mai ngā kuri a whare ki te hirau, mai make tū ki Tongariro. If you looked at it in that perspective, you think, man, it's not only rich in people, it's rich in culture, it's rich in resource, lakes, rivers, maunga, geothermal, ocean, maunga. You know, there is huge potential for kotahitanga somewhere. But to lose the essence of those particular regions at a cost? I don't know. And I think we probably need to have more discussions around what that might look like. I don't think it should come out of government over a 3-year election cycle. I think those are those are things that we need to talk about and flesh out more, because when you think about it, the biggest exporting port, kei roto I te Waiariki in Tauranga Moana. The biggest lake in the country, kei roto I a Taupo Nui. And then you got the big the geothermal platforms here, and then you got the Mana Nui a Toi, Te Uruera, Te Kaimanawa, the Raukumara, all sitting in this rich, and then it's the highest speaking reo Māori electorate in the country. It has the most marae in the country. In regards to the iwi that sit in it, they're very, very strong in terms of its cultural presence. But we've also got a strong, we've got a strong tourism thing here in the Waiariki. But not only that, I think also if you have a look at our small to medium-sized Māori businesses, there is a big chunk of it here in the Waiariki. So, if it was about us looking at how better we serve our communities and how better we can do things a ropu nei, he pai, but not to lose, I think, the essence of many of the iwi that sit within it, because you don't want to be assimilated into a one type of thinking body. Kei atu whare tō wana whakaaro mo te tiaki tana whenua me tana moana, kei a te whānau apa nui anu hoki, kei a tauranga moana anu hoki, kei a te arawa. So my thing is that I think there needs to be more discussion.
Me wānanga tonu I tēnei
Me
kaupapa
wānanga
kei
tonu
te
tātou.
rongo. Ko tētahi kaupapa kei te wānanga nui mātou ko te whānau I tēnei wā. We're seeing so many of our cousins leaving home, leaving Aotearoa and going over to Australia or abroad. Nā te mea karekau he mahi. Karekau he mahi. Nā reira, ohanga nei, he hanga kaupapa here, what does Te Pāti Māori have that could support this particular taku?
I think, when you have a look at the current statistics, 73,000 have left this country in the last year. 73,000 of our brightest and best, those who've gone through the universities here have had to pay for it. So we want to make sure that we get rid of, student-free loans and all those types of things, is to allow all of our people to have access to education, because it's getting to a point where you can only go and get a further education at tertiary level if you can afford it. And so you've got parties want to get rid of scholarships, and for those whānau who will never get to study. So we want to make sure at that end, but I think an end-to-end process. So if we're having to build more houses for our whānau out there, building papakainga, we want to ensure that, yes, those people living in it are our people, but also those people who are building it, those people that have the contract. So procurement at 25%, I think, is vitally important for us to start moving to ensure that those brightest and best people, rangatahi that are coming out of high school and out of tertiary and out of apprenticeships have the mahi there to be able to do that. They're paid a good wage, a good solid wage, and then they also that our people are benefiting from the houses that are being built. So we want to make sure there's an end to end. In terms of we want to put more investment into those Māori small to medium sized businesses. If you have a look at our whānau, you have a look online. All of our whānau that are online selling things, and there is a big chunk of it here in the Waiariki. We're very entrepreneurial, but we need the resourcing there to be able to get up. It is small to medium-sized businesses that are actually the backbone of this country. Once upon a time was farmers. Now it is small to medium-sized businesses, and there are 23,000 small to medium-sized businesses, Māori businesses. 23,000 Māori small to medium-sized businesses. Nui tera. So they're contributing to the economy. We need more investment in that particular area. Otherwise, we're going to see our brightest and best move overseas. If they're born and bred here, they should be still buttering their bread and using the butter from Aotearoa, but not moving over to Perth, Melbourne, Paris, London, or Washington.
Ana kei te rongoa hau I ngā hua o roto I tēnā aronga kamutu e rā kōrero. I'm going to move a little bit across to another kaupapa now in terms of the last 3 years. It's been a really tough 3 years. At the beginning of this particular round with this government, Te Māori Party came in very, very strong. And of course, there has been some challenges along the way. Specifically, te wāhi kia Maria Meno Kapakingi, te whānau hoki, me ngā taumahatanga I taukirunga ki a koe, ki runga ki tō whānau, ki runga no i Te Pāti Māori. And I'll be honest, there has been a whole lot of kōrero across different marae Aotea in this iwi and many other iwi. Tuatahi ake, kei te pēhea, kua tau te puehu?
Ko tau te puehu. Everybody has moved on from that particular, what would you say, season of Te Pāti Māori. And the Pāti Māori, as you know, in its very existence, has had many seasons and have gone through these types of wānanga before, let me put it that way. And so, ko timatahia Maria Mino me tana pāti a te taitokerau, kei te rere atu ia ki te mahi wana mahi, kei te takahia ia i tona rohe ake, and I wish you all the best in regards to that and her whānau, because I know how taumaha that this mahi can be. So notwithstanding just being an MP, but the commitment that your whole whānau have to make and the sacrifice. So kei te mihi atu rā kia Maria Mino. A Tākuta has also declared that he'll be running as an independent, and kei te rere, they're not tied by any other kaupapa, but they are able to rebuild their own kaupapa in regards to their political desires. So kei te mihi atu rā kia rāua. Yes, it was a difficult time, and I think more difficult for us as a people, because what I'm the most proud of is shifting the consciousness of our people. And I saw the shift of the consciousness of our people over the last 6 years. And we made our people switch their thinking from here to here. And so when that particular raurou broke out, I think that's why it felt so raw to our people in our communities, is because we shifted everybody from thinking from here, which is the most colonised part of our bodies, what it hears, what it sees, to the most uncolonised part of our bodies, which is our puku, where our blood memory and our water memory sits.
Te hiringa o te mahara.
Te hiringa o te mahara. So this part here has been challenged in terms of te mahara, ki ngā wā o mua, me te whakaaro mō ngā koro ingo e haere ake nei. This never forgets. And it's your, like I said, your blood memory and your water memory. E here anō ki ngā atua o te pō, ki ngā mātua tīpuna i te pō, ki ngā tapu ai, tapu a tātou mātua tīpuna ki runga i te moana kia tai ki tēnei whenua Aotearoa e takotone. And so it has that memory. And so I think that's why it felt so raw. So I want to mihi to our whānau and also acknowledge that.
Kia ora.
Acknowledge that hurt and pain. I think that was the biggest thing for me is the conscious change of our people. I see our people more proud. I see our people more unapologetic in these spaces. And I just want to mihi to our rangatahi. And just even in the role change for our rangatahi, that has been the biggest increase, has been in rangatahi enrollments. It was just about even Stevens between those jumping between the Māori role and the general role for those who were already registered. But that's just in between the month of March and June. I want to acknowledge the conscious move of our people over the last 3 years.
He nui.
50,000 more. 50,000 more Māori on the Māori roll than on the general roll. So Māori on the Māori roll now outpopulate Māori on the general roll. And so those are the numbers that are important to me. Why? Because we've worked hard to push for our people to enroll in the Māori. It's the most unique democratic process in the world. There's no other democratic process in the world, and people will say, "Well, there's no other one in the world. Get rid of it." No.
Special.
It is it is the most. There's no other Indigenous peoples in a Western democracy that has a role dedicated to them. Why? Because they don't have a tiriti o waitangi that ensures those types of things. So my thing is that we have to use those things to ensure that we have greater political influence. If we don't, then we continue to be manufactured into the general role, which continues the perpetuation of the continued harm of our people that we have witnessed over the last 170 odd years since Parliament was established in Aotearoa. So, koe hoki tāku e hikama, use the tools that are available to us. Our tipuna didn't get to use it like we're able to use it today. We can use it to ensure that we have greater political influence in Parliament. We get more Māori in Parliament. We get an unapologetic voice. And if you want the overhang in Parliament, the only people that can deliver an overhang in Parliament are the Māori seats in Te Pāti Māori in any change of government. It won't happen if we're giving our votes to anybody else. So taking the personalities out of the vote and looking at the strategic obligation that we have to our mokopuna, which is to make sure that this is a one-term government, is to make sure that those ones you want to put in there are delivering the kete rourou to the Hakari table, and the kete rourou that Te Pāti Māori can bring to the Hakari table to create a new government are the 7 Māori seats. That will create an overhang, that will get more Māori in Parliament and ensure our unapologetic Māori voice is still there.
Rawiri, e mihi ana kia koe. Ko pau te wā kia tāua. Ko eke ki te rua te kaumari mamineti. Hewa no hei taupuki ake for some of our whānau. They may have lost some trust over the collision and the clash earlier on in this year. He ho kupu whakamutunga kia rātou?
Me whakapono tātou. Me whakapono tātou. Aha kua piki heke. Tēnei mea te kotahitanga e hara i te mea ngāwari no. Ki te he mea ngāwari, eta. Kāre tātou mo te kōrero mo te kotahitanga, no te mea he mea whakaora i a tātou. So I just want to say, kotahitanga is something that we will work on. It was something that our tipuna worked on, and I want to acknowledge Pukawa here and the many rangatira that came. And I want to use the example of how they saw kotahitanga, because when they folded back into their communities, ko te mana ka noho tonu ki roto i a rātou. But they committed to a kaupapa, which was the kingitanga, which was an ability to be able to bring our people together through the land wars and through the colonial hurt that was happening at that particular time. But what they did was they all brought their rourou. So kotahitanga to me isn't being the same. Isn't being the same. It is about what rourou do I bring to the table hei hakari mo tātou. Ko tau rourou, ko tāku rourou, ka ora i te iwi. Because tūwharetoa rourou will be very different to traute. It's going to be very different to moki. And very different to the tuna. And so my thing is, kotahitanga takes work, it takes time. But it also gives space for others to be able to bring their rourou. So kotahitanga to me is to ensure that we've still got our rourous there to bring to the table. And in regards to politics, if I use it for politics, Te Pāti Māori's rourou will be the 7 Māori seats, and it will be up to whether it's the Greens, Labour, they will have to bring their rourou, which will look very different to ours.
E mihi ana i nei kōrero whakamutu ngā tau ai tēnei o ngā rangi. E mihi ana kia koe mōwi whai wahi mai. Tēnei whare o tātou, tēnei whare kōrero. That is your On Kaupapa podcast for today.